Good morning to everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Amanda Carneiro, and I work as an assistant curator at the São Paulo Museum of Art, an institution in São Paulo, one of the big institutions, museum institutions in Brazil. We have a huge collection of European artists, but also Brazilian and Latin America. I will today present to you what we have been done in the past few years. And I think it's related to this main topic, that is Brazil 2021, that we should address today. I am here with my colleague, Ademar.
Hi, everyone.
And you saw that is a huge and really broad subject. So we are going to get closer to our practices and speak a little bit about what we have been doing. I want to say thank you to the organizers of the Bogota Art Fair. It's been a pleasure to be here. I have been learning a lot. And it's always a good situation to be close to art and artists as well. So to start, I think you might know that we are under a very conservative government in Brazil. And it's also a government with nationalist tendencies and very far from the art scene. So during the last few years, we have been in a very difficult situation in terms of funds for the institutions, especially the ones that are related directly to the government. So the funds are very low right now. And also we have seen, and Ademar knows well, the process of burning our memory. So it happened with the National Museum, the oldest institution in Brazil. It went down with the fire, and still today we don't know how it will be rebuilt. And also our Cinematheque. So a huge number of films are now gone forever. So it's been pretty sad that we are facing this type of situation. But I don't want to address that because, you know, bad news is all over. So I'll try to say or share with you what we have been doing in order to make things, you know, at least a space to breathe. And I think that the museum where I work now is doing an important job that I will share with you. So I started this presentation with the work of Abigail Nascimento. He was quite known in Brazil for being a politician, but he was also a painter. And his legacy as a painter was very unknown until 2018, when the Contemporary Museum of Niterói in Rio de Janeiro did an exhibition about his work. And we can see here the Brazilian flag, but this flag is not exactly with all the nationalist symbols of Brazil. So we can see that there is this, I don't know how to say that in English. I just realized, yeah, an arrow. Arrow. Yeah, that is cutting the flag in two. And this is a symbol of Afro-Brazilian divinity called Oxóssi. So it's a relation with the roots, African roots of Brazil. So the flag is pointing that the population of Brazil is more than 50% of Black people, to be exactly number, it's 54% of the population is non-white. So the flag of Brazil in this case, it's also related to this legacy. And I started with this work because it's a way of announcing that the institutions in general are trying to address the population that were for centuries left outside of especially museums. So I work at this museum. That's a painting by an artist that people called popular artist or naive artist. He was working outside the museum during the 70s, and his work was incorporated into the collection during that period, and it's now on display at the museum. And I also choose to bring this work as a way to say that the things that are outside maybe can get inside of the museums. And that's a representation of the museum itself. So I work in this place. That's the São Paulo Museum of Art. The original project is from 1947, but this building was, this building opened in 1978. And it's a modernist project. As you can see, it's concrete and glass. The structure is very exposed to people, so you can see how the museum was built. And it's a project of a female architect from Italian origin. Her name is Lina Bobardi. She's quite known. She just won the Venice, the Lion of Venice architecture. And so it's a huge spot in Brazil, and especially in São Paulo. And just here at the free span, there's a lot of political manifestations. So one of her goals was achieved. That is the museum being part of the Life City. So now you can see two views of the collection. So we have also temporary exhibition spaces, but these are two views of the collection. One is from 2017 and the other one is from 2021. And I will explain to you what happened during this period. This way of display, as you can see, there is no wall. So the works are hung in a display of concrete and glass also. This very unique and iconic way of displaying works is also made by Lina Bobardi. So she was thinking that the works shouldn't be in a hierarchical position. So one way of doing that was, leaving the walls away, because then you will not give the visitor a step-by-step path to achieve some reflection or some discourse. So even though as curators, we know that we can build a discourse with that. So up, you can see that the works are mainly our European art. So it begins with, major Italian Renaissance artists like Perugino, and as you know, they are all white and male. And of course, they are very important. They still in the collection. We learn a lot with them, but it's not the only history of art. So we are trying now to mix the references in order to make people understand that it's not only one history, but a plural perspective of histories. So in 2017, when the visitor arrived at the collection, they would see mainly these works that are far from us somehow, and that are white male dominated, let's say. And now in 2021, you can see that the collection is beginning from the contemporary art. So you're gonna see Perugino, but now you will have to walk a little more to achieve them. So in terms of like symbolic terms, it's also important. They are far from us. It's more than 8,000 kilometers. So you also have to walk the collection to see this type of works. And you can see here the work that I showed you, Abigail Nascimento, and all this line is all the line is with Black artists. So the front line of the museum, you're gonna see all Black artists on it, but of course you cannot like see that because there is no, color of people in front of the work, but you can maybe realize or get in contact with, and that's important because we don't want to make the works too attached to the idea of race, but we know that race is playing a big role in institutions. So how we can overcome that without reaffirming the problem that this type of category has. So you can also see that the collection is more close to the audience, and that has been very important to bring to the museum more young and workers and popular visitors, which has been changing a lot in the collection. So I will explain to you how that happened, because it's not easy like that. You saw that it was 2017 and we are in 2021. So in 2017, the museum invited Guerrilla Girls, this female group of artists from the United States, and they did a research in our collection, and they realized that only 6% of the artists of the collection were women. So, but 60% of the female nudes were made by men. So we had a collection with a lot of female nudes, but only 6% of the collection in exhibition were works made by women. So now we have this work hung in the museum. So if you go there, you're gonna see this poster. So it was a way to show that we are addressing these topics, and that is a shared responsibility with the society. So everyone that is there can see that we are trying to work with this situation. So when they did that to show us that we had this situation, we decided to hang the works of male artists from the backside, and just the works by female artists would be to the front side. So that's the view of the collection. You can see almost none work of a female artist. So the collection was almost entirely from the backside. And it was a way to recognize as an institution that we should address the problem, but also to show the visitors what type of problem is this problem. So the Lina Bobardi, the architect of the museum, always thought that the museum should be like a school. So the visitors should be learning through artwork. And this action that we did, it was a way to share the process of learning that we were having from inside with the visitors that are from the outside. And after that, we started to address in terms of institutional politics, how to deal with this topic. And one of the first things was to change the mission of the museum. So now we have a long mission, but the first phrase is to be a more inclusive diverse and plural museum. And one of the works one of our works is doing public programs, especially seminars with intellectuals, theorists, curators, and artists from all over. And we invite the community engaged with the museum to join and discuss in which terms we should address this situation. And in one of these seminars, we invited an indigenous artist to do the poster, and he called the museum Indigenous Land. It was a way to say that before the museum, there were people there, you know, and how the museum can be part of the construction of this history, in which the indigenous are also inside, not only outside. And so he did this poster. And one of the ways of dealing with that is we work in, it's like a cycle, a thematic cycle. The program is a thematic cycle. So we did the histories of childhood in 2016, the histories of sexuality in 2017, the Afro-Atlantic histories in 2018, women's histories, feminist histories in 2019, histories of dance in 2020, and this year and the next one, it will be dedicated to the Brazilian histories. So this is one exhibition view of the histories of sexuality. So you can see Poussin close to Uda Guzman. So it's also a way to break the idea that we can see art through a very chronological perspective. So we are mixing all the time geographies, temporalities, and also ways of production. So this exhibition gave us the opportunity of incorporate works of very contemporary artists. And one of them is Uda Guzman. So she made this work for the exhibition, and later on, it became part of our collection. So what we are trying to do is the temporary exhibitions, they should leave to the museum some document that the exhibition existed. So every time that we do an exhibition, we try to incorporate works to part of our collection, because then people will see that we are not just doing something temporarily, but it was part of a desire to become more diverse, really. In fact, this one is a view of Afro-Atlantic Histories exhibition. So this exhibition was dedicated to see the influences of the African and diasporical movement in the Brazilian society. And you can see one of the nucleus, and I'm gonna show the works that were part now that became part of this collection. So both of these portraits are depicting enslaved people in Brazil that had no imagination to their faces. So the official history is always making portraits of important people, which means the people from the dominant elites, especially. And so this artist is dealing with the fact that a lot of important people also in the past couldn't have their own portraits. So he did these two portraits of very important leaders of movement, social movement leaders during the slavery period. His name is Dalton Paulo. He's young, as a young artist. He's working with, it's not possible, I think, to see, but the painting is divided in two. So he's like getting together these pieces of histories that are, not really well addressed. And he's also working originally with this type of portraits that were made to be sold as a postcard in the 19th and especially beginning of the 20th century, late 19th and beginning of the 20th century. But he's changing the symbols of the portrait that are being portrayed. So Zeferina, this one, the original picture shows her teeth, and this one is very, well dressed, let's say. We are also inviting artists to work. To do their work, especially for the collection. So one of the cases is Sonia Gomez. She's quite well known now in the Brazilian and international scenario of art. And she's dealing here, as you can see, with the display, the concrete and glass display, doing something that is quite new because she decided to do a sculpture. And the glass, like our collection is made or were made to portray paintings mainly. So it's quite difficult to find a way to occupy this type of display with another work that is not a painting or a photography. And she did this work. She was the first live Black female to make an exhibition at the museum in 2018. I was the curator of this show, and a lot of people are trying to congratulate us for doing that, and of course I accepted, but it's also a bit of a shame to think that it took more than 50 years for the museum make it possible to an artist and also a Black curator to work in a program together. So it's very contradictory because of course we must celebrate, but it's also a bit of a shame, that it takes so long to do it. That's Rosana Paulino. She's working with engravings in fabrics. And she's from a while, so she's from another generation, the 90s generation in Brazil. And she went to the biggest university and she was quite acknowledged inside of the university, but the contemporary circuit of art was during more than 20 years very far from her production. And now she's being more recognized and she's dealing with these symbols like the iconography that is part of our minds, let's say, for a while, like through books, the books that we used to study at the schools. And she's trying to address how these images are very stick to our psychological way of thinking society. And she's also part of the collection. So I'm showing to you the works that are here. She's here. Dalton and Zeferina and João de Deus are there. And we also did a program through in relation to the women's histories, feminist histories. So the exhibition it was split in two. So one part was dedicated to the women's histories and the other part to the feminist histories. Not that they are not together, but we can see that from the 19th century to the past, it's a quite different way of dealing with, female representation and the work of female artists. So we wanted to address these differences to show the plurality. So we are working with the idea that we should, in a political term, address what is to be a female artist, but we do believe that the works are not exactly related to the gender of people. You know, it can be, but it's not the only way. So to point that through the feminist perspective, but also understanding what it means to be a woman artist was a point of discussion in this project. So you can see that the display were also, it was also very different. If we consider like the women artists and the feminist artists. And when we did this program, we started the incorporation of female artists in our collection. One of them is Carolina Caicedo. She did a special work that is drawings of women leaders of social movements in Brazil. So we can see here some of major indigenous women, Black women, also white women that were working to support community projects. This is from a series of her work that is called Struggle Genealogy, and that's the Brazilian feminist lineage of this struggle. The other one is Marcela Cantuária. She's from Rio de Janeiro. She's also in our collection now. She's dedicated to this of the works of muralistas in Mexico, but she's doing that in canvas, the experience of canvas, and taking a close look to the Brazilian experience of popular, the relation between politics and, you know, popular culture and movements. The other one is Leonard Antonis. We had a monographic exhibition of her work. I was also the curator of her exhibition. And as I showed you before, doing that is still very chronological. So we were doing from the past to the contemporary times. Now we are doing from the contemporary to the past. And one way of breaking that is doing insertions like this one. So this work made by Leonard Antonis, she's a Portuguese artist that made the exhibition at the museum. She's working with designers and also architects, like women designers and architects like Eni Albers, Clara Porce, Lina Bobardi, and she's taking the details of the works of these designers and architects and make it bigger in order to call our attention that the details is what is constructing the buildings. You know, we see all the big form, but it's in the details, this experience. So she did this work in relation to Lina Bobardi, and the transparency, it can show the other works in the collection. And it was a way to put a very contemporary artist in the middle of this Renaissance portrait of the art history. And of course, we are trying to mix that with Brazilian artists that were self-taught artists. We are trying to find a conceptual category to what we call a naive artist. It doesn't fit anymore, but we don't know already how to change. So we know that they are self-taught, but it's quite different. You cannot compare the first one that I showed you. This one with Maria Auxiliadora. You know, it's not the same aspect, and it's not the same topic. So why we are putting all of them in the same category? We should, I think, in my opinion, address that in a better way. It seems that we are not intelligent enough to find, new ways of reading this type of work. I hope we will prove that we have brain soon, addressing that in a better way. So that's Maria Auxiliadora da Silva. She did this work just before dying. So we can see that she's portraying herself as a bride. She never got married, and now she's dying. We don't know if that her husband to be crying, or if it's just a member of her family. We can see also that she's portraying herself always alone, so we don't know exactly what is happening. There is a really psychological process of narrative in this work, but I brought it here because she was very innovative in terms of dealing with the three-dimensionality of her work. So she was doing that, all these, the flowers and so on, putting in the painting a mixture of a plastic material in order to make it three-dimensional. So it's also a way that we, as I was saying, we could get closer to the works, not exactly using established categories, but trying to find ways in which these artists were showing us their creative process. Another artist is Liz Paraíso. She's a trans woman, and she's working with the legacy of Lygia Clark, a very well and famous artist from Brazilian art history. So she's doing the Bichos, which is a series of important works of Lygia Clark. So she's doing a type of new reading of this work by making it very violent. So it seems also like arma, like a gun. It's not exactly a gun. Yeah, what? It's not exactly like a gun, but it can be used to fight. So it's not soft. And it was Lygia Clark's works. It can be a threat also to the ones that are getting closer. Bellic, yeah, good, exactly. So I would tell you that there is different ways of approaching the idea of diversity, and that the artists are always, as they always do, showing different perspectives of the same situation or problem or issue. So this is Flavio Cercera. He's doing sculptures. This is a sculpture of a young boy throwing into his body this white painting. So the Brazilian society faced during the late 19th state politics of whitening people. And it was a process that used the miscegenation with European people to make it possible. It didn't work. Good, in fact, that it didn't work. And this is a piece that is showing the impact of this process of whitening in the mind of a young Black boy. Tiago Santana, who is working with the legacy of the sugarcane plantation in Brazil. He's doing performances, but he's also turning the performances into photographs, as this one that we can see now. We are also doing that not only with contemporary artists, but also with the artists that were producing in the first half of the 20th century. One of them is Conceição dos Bugres. She was an artist very little known. And we did an exhibition. I curated this show. showing her works and the idea that the indigenous art history is not only the ethnographic objects and not only the contemporary artists, but we can search as curators, and I think it's our job to do it, do research to find who were producing in this lack that we consider a lack, but it's not exactly. I think it's just a lack of research. So if we work with that, it's not that they do not exist. It's just that we are not doing our job to research. And this is a contemporary indigenous artist from Brazil, Carmelia Emiliano. That's one of the works in our collection. We now have two of them. They were recently incorporated to the exhibition. In this one, we can see it's a process of learning. So we can see that the indigenous way of learning is rounding. It's like a circle around the school. So the school is this very, our way, very Occidental urbanist way of teaching and learning. And she's portraying how this process is involved with a community-based practice. So we can see that they are learning different ways of waving, doing objects of daily life, and so on. And we also have a group of drawings from the Macu, which is an indigenous movement of different artists. They are working together and doing drawings. We have more than 40 of their drawings in the collection now. And we plan to do an exhibition on the indigenous artists in 2023. So that's I'm sharing this experience with you to show that this is not an easy process. It's not something that it will happen from one day to another one. That is something that is part of it should be part, at least in my opinion, of the directors, board of members, and trustees of the museum, but also part of our daily life. You know, we should be engaged with that. We are not discussing here bad art or good art. You know, we are discussing a very historical process of discrimination that made a lot of people outside of the walls of museums, and that we can recognize and address this in a way that everyone could be part of, you know, museums discourses. And that, of course, no doubt, everyone will learn more from a process like that. But to do it, we have also to acknowledge the mistakes that we made in the past and that we still probably be doing, and accept that this is a very contradictory process, and that the contradiction is part of being alive. And also, to finish, that's not a benevolent way of doing this. It's not a benevolent action of curators. It's also part of a long process with the civil society and the way that people from the outside wants to be engaged in these inside museum situations. So, of course, museums are very conservative institutions. That's why the main area of a museum is the conservation area. But it can be, we can conserve works, but we can also be open to incorporate new ones that will be also conserved to the future generations. So this possibility of making more horizontal discussions in the museum through learning with the artists and learning with what they are doing in their creative process is something important, I think, to make the museum a really more inclusive, plural, and diverse place. And that's all. Gracias.
Hi, everyone. Oh, you guys, you got a question?
We are addressing very similar topics. I was saying from the inside perspective of a museum, and he's going to address that from the outside perspective as a collector. So maybe we can, I don't know, what do you think, one of the organizers? If we, maybe it's better later because, you know, can you wait? Oh, amazing, thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ademar Britto. I'm from Manaus, which is in the Amazon state in Brazil, but I live in Rio de Janeiro. I'm a collector, but I'm also a cardiologist. And I also made curatorial studies in the Visual School of Parque Lage in Rio de Janeiro and the Node Center in Berlin. My collection, I take it as a research, and sometimes this research is also a show or a text for an exhibition. So I collect, but sometimes I do curatorial jobs. I'm going to show a little bit of my collection, but I want to introduce you with this work of an artist from Rio de Janeiro. His name is Judy Cruz. And he was a student at the Parque Lage School of Visual Arts, which is one of the main schools of art in Brazil. They were part of the formation of one of the biggest, the well-known artists in Brazil, like Beatriz Milhazes and Adriana Varejão. So they are part of the process of developing new artists. And in 2018, Yuri showed this proposal for the school called Monuments, Documents to the Presence, which he made a research for the last 5 years of exhibitions. There were 23 exhibitions and 400 artists participating, but only 31 of them were Black. Later, he researched the pedagogical team, like the professors, and he found out that only 5% of the professors, the teachers, were Black. Yeah. So with this document, he made a proposal for the school for them to be a commitment to have more racial equality. So they would sign this document as an official document, telling that they're going to make it different for the next generations. But the school didn't accept it to sign this paper. This is a photo of Yuri's exhibition in 2019 at the Elliott Sica Center of Arts. And the name of this exhibition is Pretofagia, which relates to the anthropophagia, which is one of the main topics of the modern movement in Brazil. And one of the works that he's showing is the anthropophagic tomb, which relates to Tarsila Amaral works, which is one of the most known modernist artists from Brazil. And this is a representation of a Black woman. And he made this tomb, which is very you can understand what he's telling. Then those representations, the modernist was talking about the Brazilian roots, but actually it wasn't the Black or the popular artists that were telling the story. It was an elite So they were quite distant from the, can say, the reality. And now things are very different. This is one of the works that I have from him, which is I Bowed Over Marble Fields, that comes with the poem. But I'm not getting very deep on the works because my presentation is quite long, but I want to show more the photos for you to know better his practices, the artist's practice. He's in Instagram. I'm showing everyone's Instagram so you can follow and another artist, but he calls Jota. His name is Johnny Gomez. He is an artist, he's a self-taught artist. He has 20 years, and he started painting during the pandemics. He never went to a formal art school, you know? And in his paintings, he talks about his daily life. He lives in a suburb in Rio, a very difficult neighborhood, and he talks about the government violence, and also about leisure, music, popular culture. Those are one of his earlier works. I met him on Instagram, and I was obsessed about his practice, and we became friends. And I started advising him how to be a professional artist. And now he's just opening a show with the Curadoria de Pablo León de la Barra. It's his first solo exhibition. There are some photos of it. And now he's the other artists from the region are very inspired to work, that they can see they can be recognized and they can be professional artists. These works, he's representing the President Bolsonaro, and the title is Inequality. Yeah. For a 20 years old artist doing this, is very symptomatic of our times.
The children is also using this type of uniform of public schools in Brazil, and it shows a lot how the state is always a threat to very young people. It should protect, but it feels like a threat.
This other artist is Emanuel Araújo. He doesn't have an Instagram. This photo is from the 60s. Yeah? He's one of he's a painter, but he's a sculpturist, and also gravador. I don't know, engraver, I guess. He's Ademar Britto. He's also the director and the founder of the museum, Afro-Brazilian Museum, which is located in the Ibirapuera Park in Oscar Niemeyer Modern Building. And Emmanuel donated from his own collection more than 3,000 works to build this institution. Okay. Emmanuel, he was also the director of the Pinacoteca do Estado de São Paulo. And during his time there, he incorporated a lot of Black Brazilian artists to the collection. He also made a refurbishment by Paulo Mendes da Rocha, which is a famous actor. He's what's the prize here? He won the Pritzker Prize and also the Venice Lion Prize for architecture. Yeah.
I have worked at the Afro-Brazil Museum for 6 years. It was a very important institution to my learning process of art history without the perspective of the university. And that's a very little recognized institution in Brazil. So they have a huge and amazing work of researching and collecting the works not only of Black people, but also indigenous people in Brazil, and the ones that are in this category that I shared with you, the popular artists. And it's the institution with less funds from enterprises, companies, and private individuals. So this is a very difficult way of assuming that it's very difficult for institutions that are dealing with indigenous women and Black artists to find funds for their position. So now I work at the São Paulo Museum of Art, and it's amazing, how supportive civil society can be. And, it's wonderful. I love that I can do the projects that I always wanted there. But at the same time, it feels really unfair that Afro-Brazil Museum is not receiving the same attention as the São Paulo Museum of Art.
This is him at Amanda's museum, where she works. This is another view of the exhibition. Go.
So we did an exhibition. He's the director of Afro-Brazil Museum. So it's not very, it's not good to have his own exhibition on his own museum somehow. And we did an exhibition of his work at the museum where I'm working now, the São Paulo Museum of Art. And it was a way to show his production besides being a director. And that's very difficult, I think, to a lot of artists when they started to support projects of other people. They are somehow addressed like curators or directors, and then all their creativity is killed by the necessity of supporting other works. So doing one exhibition of his production, it was a way to remember the society that he's an artist and that he's doing all this organization process, because it's very difficult for other people to do it.
Here's a photo. Amanda already showed the Rosana Paulino's work, which is besides his work, which is the ship, and that he is. And this photo is this painting is called The Slave Ship, and it's on my collection. This work also was the cover of this book, which is Who is Who in the Brazilian Blackness, which is with a survey, a research about Brazilian intellectuals, Black Brazilian intellectuals. These are the artists called Mulambo. He's from Rio de Janeiro, but he lives in São Gonçalo, which is a city next to Rio de Janeiro, across the bridge. And I met him when he made a show at the Museum of Art of Rio with this exhibition called Tudo Nosso. And when I could acquire this work, which is the title of the exhibition. There's also this intervention of photograph that was also featured in the cover of a magazine of the Instituto Moreira Salles, that's showing that how the editorials and the institutions are more aware of this production that is not very central, not only white, more peripheric is another work. This other artist is quite known, is Paulo Nazaré, because he already did like 2 times the Venice Biennial. He has worked in a lot of big collections all over the world. He was known for making a walking trip from Brazil to the United States. And during this trip, he walked almost the whole Latin America before arriving in the US. And he started to research about our roots. And in this work, he makes a comparison that what's the color of my skin. In Brazil, his origins is black, white, and European. No, black, European, and indigenous. Sometimes he's read as a black Brazil. I guess people think he's black. Sometimes in other countries he's reading as an indigenous, and sometimes he's always also read as a white person. So he discusses about these origins. Here he's with another artist, which is Carlos Martial. He's a Cuban artist. They met in Argentina while they were doing residency. This is another work. Then he is straight. You are afraid of me, and he is. What do you feel when you see me around? Here he is. I guess this photo he took in Bolivia. This is another artist called Barbara Wagner. She represented Brazil with her partner, which is Benjamin de Burca, at the last Venice Biennial. And I have this work that he made in 2005, 2007, which Barbara, she used to work as a photography reporter, and she deals with the representation of the other. This is another artist that I have in a collection, which is Jonathan Andrade. He made this exhibition at the Museum of Arts of Rio, which calls the Northeast Men's Museum, which addressed a museum in the Northeast that was built by Gilberto Freire. And it's interesting that it's taking consideration the gender, because when someone says that the museum is a man's history, he's erasing a lot of things. This is another artist from the collection. It's Heitor dos Prazeres. He was a painter, also a musician and choreographer, and he died in the 60s. And he's very important for the Brazilian culture. Once he was one of the founders of what we understand today as samba. Please, Amanda.
He also won the São Paulo Biennial Prize, the first one in 1951. So it's quite interesting that later on the institutions were not working with him because he was, the winner of a big prize as the São Paulo Biennial.
The MoMA has works from him. The São Paulo Museum too. He's quite known, but there is a lot more to discover about him. And this work now is in show at the Museum of Art of Rio, and gonna stay a year far from me, far from home. This is a Colombian artist that I collect too. When I came here for the first time, 2018 for the fair, I could acquire this work, which he's showing is a representation of hermaphrodite. Actually, it was a photo of the French photographer Nadar there was a scientific photo that were not supposed to be shown to the world, but at the time the person was very disrespected, and the photo is now available on even on the internet. And there's also this other work, which I don't have a good photo of him. Because on the how to say the moldura, on the frame, the frame is written "break the chains of injustice." Yeah, and that's all. There's also a work from Ivan Argotti, which is also a friend of mine. During the pandemics, I was invited to participate in a project to raise funds to help people in vulnerability. And Ivan was very generous by donating a work for us to make the funds. Also, something that I want to tell that is not in the exhibition, that I was invited this year to participate at the Rio de Janeiro's Art Fair, Art Rio, as one of the curators of a booth, and in partnership with Redinami, which is a non-profit organization for equal rights, gender, female equal rights. We made a booth with 15 non-white artists, female artists, and we was very happy that the museums bought their works, and those Black girls now are very excited to produce more and to be professionalized. I guess that's all.
Please.
Thank you. Really, I want to give an opinion. If you can listen. Okay.
They're recording, so maybe you should. Yeah.
Thanks. First of all, I want to congratulate you both for your interesting lectures and the work you're doing and supporting and promoting the work of women, Black people, and indigenous people. And especially, I want to mention the importance of promoting indigenous art, because we are used to exhibit and promote and support craftsmanship or artisanry of the indigenous people, but not art. So really, I congratulate you. Thank you.
I didn't show here the presentation because I'm an obsessive collector. I have more than 200 works, so this may be like 10%. Yeah. But I also collect, I'm from the Amazon state, as I said, and there's an artist that I'm on the show, this Danilson Baniwa, and I have several works from him, but I couldn't put on the exhibition. It's just...
I just wanted to say that this is my first in-presence talk since the pandemic, and I've enjoyed it so much, really, your work, your trajectory, how you represent. I really admire everything you've done. And I wanted to know, as a young collector, what tips would you give me as a Latin and woman? Because I feel I have this set of rules when I buy art. I collect Latin American art. For every work of a man I buy, of a male, I buy two. I have the two of a woman to try to have more. But I feel these are just rules. And also whatever my eye likes is what I get. But you mentioned that your collection has a lot of anthropological research in a way. So I love that. I love that things make sense and have a history, and then when you look back, what is it? Why did I do this? So if you have any tips you could give me as a collector and as a curator to have a collection that makes sense and can really make a difference later on.
I guess a tip I would give is like to get to know the artists, né? And ask them which other artists they are following, their friends, which artists are practicing something close. So this way you can make have more sense when you put together all those different artists. And as you said, I take my collection as a research, and internet it helps a lot. That's why I'm putting the Instagrams on each yeah, because internet can. You can do a studio visit on internet today, and when you see the Instagram is also a portfolio, you know? And I learn a lot from Instagram. The posts the artists do. It's funny. Yeah.
I want to say thank you for the acknowledgement, but I also want to say that this is a very collective practice, that I'm not doing that by myself. The museum in which I work is not doing it by itself. It's a really big and broad a network that supports this type of agency, and that's really, you know, substantial for changing things. It's not take this activity as something personal. So I think we should be personally involved with, but in a network that makes not only the exchange of ideas possible, but also the activity to change more, you know, strong. I think that indigenous artists, they are less somehow, at least in Brazil, they are less recognized as artists. And I love it, your consideration that we are taking the works as artifacts or you know, or souvenirs. And that's why I was also telling that we should break this barrier between the ethnographic objects to contemporary art. We have to understand better, and that's why I was provoking us in order to think that in new categories that we have to find, and it's part of our research process, that it will be successful if we do it in partnership with indigenous people, you know. So it's also about how we connect and not split. How can we be able to learn from each other, and sometimes even unlearn, because we have some categories that are very prejudicial. So sometimes we have to unlearn them also to be able to learn new things. And it's very difficult from an institutional position give tips for collectors. But what I would say is that it's really important to understand the works besides the identity only, because that can be a prison. So I'm a curator. I know that I make a lot of effort for Black artists and indigenous artists and women artists, but I want to be universal as anyone. I don't want to be the only one that is specific, you know, so the white males, they are like the universal perspective, and then I'm a Black curator. So I would say that the thing is that you could use your own categories, the ones that you have now, to look to the works that you're acquiring from Black and indigenous and women artists also. But you have to take it serious, you know, in a way that you can use technique. You can look to our work through technique. I was showing you how, you know, technique is also, it's the basis of the idea of aesthetic. like the formal language attached to the discourse. And so you can try to learn how the formal ideas of the works are related to discourses that are broader than the work itself. And that's something that you can do it by looking, you know, but looking not with your pre-conceptual thoughts, but exactly like really looking to the works. We are in our work system, I think we are very somehow based on other people's opinion, and which takes from us the possibility of like really look to the materiality of the works. And when you get closer to the materials and how the materials are building discourses, I think you're gonna achieve for your own collection your personality in the collection also, because it's not being pointed by someone or another person. And one of the things that it causes me pain every time I see a collection of a collector is when they have just one work of an artist that's, it should be denied, because then you cannot see the different phases of production and you cannot like really get the context of the works, because you have one only, piece. So I think it's nice always when you follow the work. It's the same in the museum. So I'm the type of curator that feels like really pity when we show just one artwork of the artist, because then you go there, you like it, but you're not sure, like, I don't know if I like just this one or the others, if it works, or if it doesn't. So I think it's, a lot of collectors are buying one or two pieces of artists, and it feels strange for me, that you cannot get a sense. And especially when you're buying artists that are not well known. So if you have a Van Gogh, of course, anyone knows like different Van Goghs. But if you have Abel Rodrigues, for instance, maybe a lot of people won't know her works, his work. So if you have more than one, then you're being like very generous, not only with the artist, but also with the ones that are getting in contact with the work. And the last one, I would say, is to respect the prices of this type of work, because mostly people they are open to pay thousands of dollars in male white artists, and then when it's like Black, indigenous, or female, they are begging for discount. And I feel so ashamed. Like, you can pay like a lot of money for something that it's even, maybe the person it's on no need of this amount of money, and you accept to pay that. But then when it's, someone who is more fragile in the art system, collectors started to beg for discount. I would say that if you really want to support a more equality situation, it's also about doing that. And Ademar is doing something that I think it's interesting, is betting in works that are really early works, that it's not even like for the idea of good taste, they are not even really prepared. But we know it's also a lack of opportunity. So sometimes when you buy works that are not exactly in your taste in terms of quality, but you buy them, you give them, the artist, the possibility of getting better, because they have the funds to be better to buy better paintings, to buy better materials, to make the work better in a general way. So I think that being a collector and doing this practice, it can be seen as a way to support, initial emerging artists, and you can through relationships, like if you feel somehow affection for someone, then it's a good way of supporting, its work. Like, I'm gonna give the opportunity of being good, because I always say to people that being a genius It's just a matter of time and money. So when you have both of them, it's easier to be a genius. So a genius artist is also someone who will have a dry space, like a good studio, good materials, you know, and time to process and think. Of course, it's not easy like that, but to provoke is a way to understand that there is many people that could be really good in what they are doing, but they don't have time and funds to be really good. So I think the collectors can also feel that they, you know, like supporting this type of practices.
Just to finish what the one that was telling, a lot of times I'm the first buyer of the artist's work, and I try to give some advices and to help to develop the career. Yeah? And it's something that gives me a lot of pleasure. Yeah? And I feel that I'm using all this knowledge that I have on the art scene to promote and to elevate other artists from the community. And that's very important. I just want to remark that. Maybe it's the most important. Yeah.
So thank you very much for listening to us and for, you know, being part of this conversation. I hope you enjoy Art Bo as I'm enjoying it, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.